Imagine trying to transition millions of vehicles across an entire subcontinent, just moving them from combustion engines to electric power, and doing all of that in just 24 months.
Right, which is an insanely tight timeline.
It is. But then imagine doing all of that while realizing the electricity you're using to charge those new, clean vehicles is still heavily generated by burning coal.
Yeah, that's the real kicker, isn't it?
Exactly. So today we're stepping into the command center of India's push for sustainable mass mobility. We are doing a deep dive into the newly launched PM eDrive scheme.
Which is the PM Electric Drive Revolution in Innovative Vehicle Enhancement.
Right. And we aren't just talking about cars today. We're analyzing a massive industrial strategy, looking at how the government is basically trying to overhaul public transport, build out a domestic supply chain, and, rewrite the rules of digital governance.
It really is a massive pivot in policy. Like, if you're analyzing current affairs or studying governance models or even tracking economic shifts, this scheme is a total masterclass in structural evolution. Because PM eDrive, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It directly replaces the previous FAME India Phase 2 scheme.
Right, the faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But PM eDrive is not just, FAME Phase 3. The government has completely changed its rationale here.
How so?
Well, they're deliberately shifting their capital away from subsidizing private luxury electric vehicles. Instead, they're redirecting that focus entirely toward mass public transportation.
So we're talking electric buses, commercial trucks.
Exactly. And crucially, building a localized, self-reliant manufacturing base.
Okay, let's unpack this because I noticed a very specific detail in the structural design of this scheme that really stood out, and I want to get your read on it.
Sure. What did you spot?
So the implementing body for this massive environmental transition isn't the Ministry of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change, and it isn't even the Ministry of Road Transport. It's the Ministry of Heavy Industries, the MHI. That feels like a very deliberate signal to me. Like, why put the heavy industry folks in charge of an emissions policy?
Oh, it's 100% deliberate. Because placing this under the Ministry of Heavy Industries explicitly states that electric mobility in India is no longer just an environmental initiative. It's an aggressive industrialization strategy. It's about who actually builds the machines of tomorrow.
So it's about the manufacturing muscle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If the only objective was cleaning up urban air quality, the government could just, lower tariffs and import thousands of ready-made EVs from abroad.
Right, just buy them from somewhere else.
Yeah. But putting MHI at the helm means the true objective is domestic capacity. It's about building the factories, training a new manufacturing workforce, and controlling the intellectual property right here at home.
Which means they're treating this as an economic engine, not just a climate band-aid. So if we look at the financial engine driving this, I see in the source documents a massive total financial outlay. 10,900 crore rupees.
It's a huge number.
And what makes that number even more striking is the timeline you mentioned. The government wants this deployed over a tight 2-year period.
Yeah, 24 months to move that kind of capital.
But a headline number that big can kind of obscure the actual strategy. For you listening, we need to know where exactly is all that money flowing to force this kind of rapid market adaptation.
Well, breaking down how that 10,900 crore rupees is carved up tells you exactly what the state values most.
Okay, let's drill down into that.
So the lion's share, about 3,679 crore rupees, is dedicated entirely to demand incentives.
But again, not for private luxury cars, right?
Right, no. This is the direct subsidy engine for electric two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and emerging categories. The practical goal here is to put affordable EVs into the hands of the people who are constantly on the road. So gig workers, delivery fleets, daily commuters.
The people who actually form the backbone of urban logistics. But buying the vehicle is only half the equation, right? A gig worker with a dead battery just has a very expensive driveway ornament.
Yeah, a heavy paperweight.
The lack of places to actually plug these things in has been the biggest bottleneck for years.
Which is exactly why the second largest slice of the pie is 2,000 crore rupees dedicated to EBVCS.
That stands for Electric Vehicle Public Charging Stations, right?
That's the one. And this capital is being surgically targeted at cities that already have a high penetration of EVs, as well as selected national highways.
Okay, to cure the range anxiety.
Yes. The psychological barrier of range anxiety, the fear of being stranded without a charge, is the single biggest deterrent to adoption. This infrastructure push is designed to cure that.
And beyond the standard two and three wheelers, there are a couple of highly specialized deployments in this budget that I thought were fascinating.
Like the medical transport.
Yeah, there's a 500 crore rupee allocation specifically for e-ambulances. That struck me as a really unique, brand new initiative.
It really is.
We're talking about replacing loud, diesel-chugging medical transport with quiet, environmentally friendly patient transport in, highly congested urban centers.
Which is huge for noise and air pollution around hospitals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And matched right alongside that is another 500 crore rupees strictly for e-trucks.
Right, because heavy commercial vehicles like trucks are disproportionate contributors to urban air pollution.
They make up a small percentage of total vehicles, but produce a massive percentage of the particulate matter.
Exactly. So electrifying them is critical. But what is truly fascinating about this scheme isn't just what they're subsidizing, it is how they are delivering the money.
Oh, yeah.
It's a brilliant piece of governance reform.
You're talking about the delivery mechanism for the subsidies. The e-voucher system, I kind of view it like a digital fast pass.
That's a good way to put it.
Because in the past, getting a government subsidy meant dealing with endless paperwork, waiting months for a rebate check to clear, and, frankly, navigating a bureaucracy that was ripe for middleman corruption.
Precisely.
Huh.
But under PM eDrive, when a buyer purchases an EV, an e-voucher is generated and sent directly to their registered mobile number.
Boom, right to the phone.
Right to the phone. And it is entirely Aadhaar authenticated. So the buyer simply shows the voucher at the dealership, the dealer authenticates it with an OTP, and the discount is applied instantly at the point of sale.
Okay, I mean, that sounds incredibly efficient on paper, but I have to push back a bit. Does an e-voucher system actually stop the leakage? We've seen digital governance initiatives struggle with implementation before.
It does, because it represents a major maturation of digital India. It creates a closed, verifiable loop.
How so?
The dealer gets reimbursed directly based on that Aadhaar-linked transaction. It cuts out the intermediaries. You cannot fake the sale of a subsidized vehicle if it requires the unique digital identity of a real citizen standing in the showroom.
Ah, okay.
It ensures that the 3,679 crore rupees in demand incentives actually reaches the buyer it's meant for.
Right, I see how that works for a standard consumer. But there's a massive catch when we look at the e-trucks.
Ah, the scrapping linkage.
Yes, because if a logistics company wants to claim that e-truck incentive, they can't just walk in and buy one. They have to jump through a very specific regulatory hoop first.
They do.
They have to produce a scrapping certificate from an authorized MORTH facility.
Right. So MORTH is the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and the facility you were referring to is an RVSF.
Which is a registered vehicle scrapping facility.
Exactly. And this is a masterstroke of interlinked policy.
Why is it a masterstroke?
Because you cannot access the government funds for a new zero-emission truck unless you can legally prove you have taken a highly polluting, end-of-life internal combustion engine truck permanently off the road.
Wow. You are essentially forcing them to kill a dirty vehicle to birth a clean one?
Exactly. It ties pollution reduction directly to fleet modernization, and it creates a circular economy.
Oh, because of the parts.
Right. The scrap metal, the steel, and the usable parts from that old truck feed back into the domestic industrial base, while the purchase of the new electric truck drives demand for the emerging tech sector.
So buying the vehicles, charging the vehicles, and taking the old ones off the road, it's a full cycle. But this brings us back to the Ministry of Heavy Industries and the actual manufacturing of these machines.
Yes, the localized supply chain.
Right. The source documents detail something called the Phased Manufacturing Program, or PMP. What does that actually look like on the ground?
So if we connect it to the bigger picture, the PMP is the engine of the government's Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Self-Reliant India initiative within this sector. It provides scaled financial incentives for companies to actually set up production facilities and expand their assembly lines domestically. And it also provides heavy subsidies for localized research and development.
Because if we only assemble vehicles using imported batteries and imported drivetrains, we're just trading one dependency for another, right? I mean, in the 20th century, a nation's security and economic stability were heavily tied to securing foreign oil supply chains.
And in the 21st century, national security is tied to securing advanced battery systems, rare earth minerals, and energy-efficient drivetrains.
Right.
If a country doesn't own the battery technology, they don't truly own their mobility. By funding R&D through the PMP, India is actively trying to move from mere capability demonstration to true strategic autonomy.
So it's a massive national security play.
Absolutely. Decreasing our reliance on imported foreign battery tech is a matter of profound economic and national security. The PME drive scheme is the connective tissue linking those geopolitical goals to everyday transit.
Okay, hold on. I need to throw a wrench in this because here's where it gets really interesting. There's a massive reality check hiding in the source material.
Okay, lay it on me.
We've talked extensively about zero emissions, clean air, green mobility, and geopolitical security. But the documents openly acknowledge a glaring issue: the coal paradox.
Ah, yes, the grid.
A huge percentage of India's national electricity grid is still powered by burning coal. So if millions of these new electric trucks and two-wheelers are plugging into a grid powered by fossil fuels, are we actually solving the climate crisis? Or are we just shifting the emissions from the vehicle's tailpipe in the middle of the city to the power plant's smokestack in the countryside?
That is the most critical evaluation you can make of this entire sector.
Yeah.
The grid emission paradox is entirely real.
Right.
We are, in the short term, shifting the geographic location of the emissions.
Right.
However, the structural argument is that a centralized emission source like a handful of power plants is infinitely easier to regulate, to implement carbon capture technology on, and eventually to transition to renewables.
Because it's all in one place.
Exactly. That's much easier than trying to regulate millions of individual aging, poorly maintained diesel engines spread across a massive continent.
So it's a synchronized transition. You have to build the electric vehicle fleet and the charging infrastructure today, knowing it is imperfect, so that 10 years from now, when the grid actually becomes fully renewable, the vehicles are already in place to utilize it.
Precisely. You cannot wait for a perfectly green grid before you start building the electric cars.
Mm-hmm.
But you're absolutely right to point it out. The ultimate environmental success of PME Drive is handcuffed to the broader decarbonization of the national power grid.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are other immediate implementation challenges we have to acknowledge to balance our analysis here. Despite that 2,000 crore rupee injection for charging stations, we are still facing severe resource constraints.
Right. And beyond just finding a plug, the technology itself still has major limitations, doesn't it?
Definitely.
I mean, if I'm a gig worker doing food delivery, time is literally money. I can't sit at a public charging station for 4 hours waiting for a suboptimal battery to juice up.
Which is exactly why the scheme places a heavy emphasis on battery swapping stations, particularly for those commercial two-wheelers.
Oh, so you just swap and go?
Right. The unit economics for a delivery driver demands zero downtime. Battery swapping allows that driver to pull up to a kiosk, remove their depleted battery, slide it into a charger, and pull out a fully charged battery in under 2 minutes.
Wow, okay. That changes the game.
It does. By incentivizing swapping infrastructure alongside traditional plug-in stations, the policy attempts to bridge the current gap in battery charging speeds.
Okay, so if you are listening to this and you need to synthesize all of this, maybe you're drafting a policy brief, preparing for a strategic meeting, or sitting for a high-stakes competitive exam, how do we structure this information so it isn't just a pile of facts?
Right, you need a system.
Let's build a couple of frameworks. If someone needs the concise one-page executive summary, like a 150-word structure, how do they build that?
For a tight, high-impact summary, structure it around 3 core pillars.
Okay, what's first?
First, establish the context. Just briefly state, PME Drive replaces FAME 2. It is driven by the Ministry of Heavy Industries, and it deploys 10,900 crore rupees over an aggressive 2-year timeline.
Got it. And then the pillars.
Then hit your 3 pillars. Pillar 1 is the shift to mass mobility, highlighting the specific funding for e-trucks and the new e-ambulances.
Right.
Pillar 2 is domestic manufacturing, where you point to the phased manufacturing program and the drive for strategic supply chain autonomy.
Okay. And the third?
Pillar 3 is infrastructure, noting the massive capital injection for public charging and battery swapping to counter range anxiety.
That's a solid structure.
And you always close a brief like that with a reality check,
Yeah.
it's way ahead. State that the ultimate success relies on grid decarbonization to resolve the coal paradox.
Okay, what if we need to go deeper, like a 250-word structure, a comprehensive, multidimensional policy analysis where you really have room to show strategic depth?
In a deeper analysis, you break the scheme down by its systemic dimensions.
Okay, walk me through those dimensions.
First, you tackle the governance dimension by explaining how Aadhaar-authenticated e-vouchers eliminate middleman corruption and subsidy leakage.
Nice.
Then you tackle the technology dimension by discussing how R&D grants aim to break our dependence on foreign battery imports.
The Atma of our heart angle.
Exactly. After that, you tackle the financial dimension by explaining the circular economy, how targeted subsidies for e-trucks require scrapping certificates from an RVSF facility.
And then we bring in the critical evaluation.
Yes, you must dedicate a section to the challenges, the current infrastructure deficit, the slow charging times, and that grid emission paradox.
Right. And how do we wrap that up?
Finally, provide structural recommendations. Don't just say, we need more chargers. Recommend institutional partnerships for international tech transfers, accelerated rollout of swapping networks for gig workers, and targeted skill development to build the workforce needed to maintain these new fleets.
That is brilliant. And if you want to sound like an absolute insider when discussing this policy, there is a specific administrative vocabulary you need to use.
Oh, absolutely. Keywords are everything.
Instead of just saying manufacturing subsidies, talk about the phased manufacturing program. Instead of getting a discount on your phone, talk about ATAR-authenticated e-vouchers.
Right.
Talk about battery swapping unit economics. Talk about mass mobility rather than just electric cars. And always mention the Morth RVSF scrapping certificate requirement.
The vocabulary proves you understand the structural intent behind the policy.
Exactly. Using those terms signals that you understand the mechanics of the machinery, not just the paint job.
Well said.
All right, we are in the home stretch now. To lock this into your memory before you step out of the war room, here are the absolute executive takeaways you need to carry with you. I'm going to hit you with 5 must-remember facts.
Let's hear them.
Fact 1. The total financial outlay is 10,900 crore rupees, deployed over a highly aggressive 2-year timeline. Fact 2. It officially replaces the FAME 2 scheme, moving away from private luxury subsidies.
Yep.
Fact 3. It is implemented by the Ministry of Heavy Industries, proving this is fundamentally an industrial and manufacturing strategy.
Right, not just environment.
Fact 4. The e-truck incentives require a scrapping certificate, legally linking pollution reduction to fleet modernization.
The circular economy.
And fact 5. 2,000 crore rupees is dedicated entirely to EV public charging stations to finally cure range anxiety.
Perfect. Now, if you were ever asked to critically evaluate this topic, the core question to ask, like your one probable exam question is, how does the PM e-drive scheme mark a definitive shift from private EV adoption to mass public mobility and strategic manufacturing autonomy?
That's a great framing.
Yeah, and just keep those core themes in mind. Strategic autonomy, supply chain localization, digital e-governance through vouchers, and the lingering grid emission paradox.
Take those frameworks, those concepts, and that level of critical analysis into your own work. You now have the blueprint to dissect this transition from the ground up.
But before we wrap up, there is one final implication we haven't touched on yet.
Oh, what's that?
It's a massive, silent shift happening right beneath the surface of this policy. We are pushing for millions of electric vehicles, which have only a fraction of the moving parts of an internal combustion engine.
Right. They don't have spark plugs, they don't need oil changes, they don't have complex timing belts.
Exactly. So as this scheme aggressively phases out traditional engines, what happens to the millions of traditional auto mechanics across the country whose livelihoods depend on fixing them?
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought of that.
Are we preparing a massive workforce for obsolescence? Or are we building the training infrastructure to turn yesterday's grease monkeys into tomorrow's high-voltage software technicians?
That is a completely different kind of transition to think about. Thank you for joining us in the Command Center for this deep dive. Keep questioning the structures around you, and we'll see you next time.